Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the D-Shift podcast. And today we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to everybody's heart, whether you're going through divorce, whether you're a single parent trying to navigate the challenges of doing that, or whether you're happily married or happily single. And that is all about finances. And so I have an expert on the show with me today, Micah Roberts. She is the CEO, and I love this, that's the Chief Empowerment Officer of Empowering Financial Coaching, LLC. And Micah works with her business partner and life partner to in the company to really help people to discover and optimize personalized strategies to grow their wealth and to have that financial empowerment and lasting success with money, which is what we're all looking for. Micah has a background in education, ministry, and coaching. So Micah, welcome.
Thanks so much. I'm so delighted to be here, Marty.
Well, it's always so nice to talk to you. And I've got to say this because I will forget if we go any further and I don't mention it. If you are not signed up to get Micah's newsletters, get them because I love them. They're short. They're not pages and pages. They're really short, but they give you really great, simple and practical financial tips, strategies for how to stretch your lunch budget for your kids when they're going back to school. That was one I really liked. I just read one on how the interest rates are going to impact people. So really practical, timely financial information that's even I can understand. So definitely something you're going to want to check out. So Micah, with all that said, tell me a little bit about, or tell us a little bit about what got you into this very specific area of helping people.
Yeah, I think that's where we have kind of a shared passion in kind of supporting people who have gone through divorce. My husband and I both went through kind of messy divorces before we found ourselves each other. And so we both found ourselves single parents, having gone through a big financial reset. And we went through the ups and downs, lefts and rights of figuring out our finances, figuring out what life looked like, and all of those kind of things. And to be honest, for both of us, it was bumpy.
Yeah.
And we didn't know where the support systems were. We didn't know where to turn. And so out of both of our experiences, after, we kind of found each other, we started having some of those conversations like, who did you turn to and where did you go and all of that. And we realized that after a while, when we had gotten through it, people started turning to us because of our experience and going, so how did you do X, Y, and Z? So how did you do X, Y, and Z? And so we were like, people are looking for a place where they can feel safe, where they don't feel guilty, they don't have shame, because there's so many emotions also tied up in that time period. And so that's how empowering financial coaching came to be, is we just want to create this space where you can lay it all out on the table and we'll help you kind of put the nuts and bolts of it back together again, without making you feel guilty or shameful or embarrassed about anything that's going on. And so that's how we kind of got to where we are. And we love working with families of all shapes and sizes. You don't have to have gone through a divorce, obviously, but that's really kind of where our inspiration came from.
Right. And I think that this whole idea of the emotions around money is something we don't talk about enough. And I know that's one of the things that you really help your clients is that it's not just knowing your numbers, because your numbers are pretty easy, right? I mean, you can grab a tax return, you can look at your 1099s or W-4s or whatever you got, and you can see the numbers, but there's still the emotions and the values that are associated with that. Can you share a little bit about how that plays into money decisions that people make?
Yeah, I tell everybody if it was just math, we would all be able to do this. We all went through elementary school math, right? 2 plus 2 is 4. And so it's not just math. Nobody tells you when you're learning that math that it's either two apples or two pieces of clothing and then this. And so you're having to make these decisions about this or that. And what does that mean for my family and my kids? And so there's these extra layers on top of 2 + 2 = 4.
Right.
And that's the stuff that kind of pulls us and pushes us in these different directions. And sometimes we get caught in the other stuff and we just lose sight of the numbers.
Right.
And so it's one of those things that we work really hard with our clients to help them understand the numbers and kind of pull away the emotion, which is hard to do sometimes when, particularly when you're in the thick of something very emotional like a divorce or that kind of thing, but also to align their numbers with their values. Because sometimes the other stuff is everybody else telling you what you should do with your money. And
Yes.
so, my sister says I should buy a house. My mom says that I should pay off my student loans. My brother says that my car is old, so I should buy a new one. And so like there's all this other stuff, and you're going, if I don't do what they say, am I being rude? And like, am I not listening to their advice? And so like there's all of that also weighing on it. And we kind of have to put that to the side and go, what's best for your math with your resources? And what do you want for
Right.
your family at this time and with your goals? And so sometimes just the fact that like you're in charge of your own stuff is a brand new freeing message.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a while to kind of let that soak in.
Right. Yeah, and there can be, so I was just speaking with the client a couple of weeks ago, and she called me really distressed that was, 3 or 4 months behind in child support payments, was being evicted from her apartment because she had no income, 3 very young children, four, no, I'm sorry, 4 very young children she was looking after. And she went to her family for some financial support, and her family said, well, you wanted the divorce, you made your bed, now you lie in it. And I thought, oh my gosh, like now on top of all this financial overwhelm. And I mean, this isn't a person who had a 401k or anything else that they could access. This was a person who had literally been living paycheck to paycheck on in the marriage, and now in the divorce, when that paycheck was being withheld completely, had zero income. It's not like she can go find a job. She's got 4 kids under the age of 5. It's like, oh my gosh, people have no concept of how challenging this can really be for people.
Yeah, and it's really funny. One of the things that we talk about a lot is honesty and transparency and vulnerability is the hardest place to be. And sometimes when you are honest, transparent, and vulnerable with the people you think you can be, you get reactions just like that you don't expect. And
Right,
when you get those reactions, those people can't be a part of the rebuilding of the solution,
right,
unfortunately.
right,
And so you can still love them, you can still, have them in your social life, you can still have them in all those other circles, but they're probably not going to be a part of your financial rebuilding. They're not going to be the people that you bounce budget, questions off of and that kind of thing, because you're in a rebuilding framework and you need safe places where you can be vulnerable and not feel shame and all of that. So if that's happening there, those aren't the people that you can have those conversations with.
right. And we were lucky because thankfully I knew a few people that were in her city that do things like charity outreach and support and temporary financial assistance. And so we were able to sit down in a brainstorming session and get her a list of 10 steps that she could take where she could, because it was just too much for her. There was just too much she was facing. And she does have resources. She just
Yeah.
wasn't able to actually look at them. So I so appreciate what you're saying with that.
Yeah, and one of the things that we fight the most is our humanity. Like we are particularly, and I'm going to say this, as Americans, we're like, let's go get it. Let's go work it. I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to make something out of myself. And honestly, my word of 2025 is community. You you need a community.
Yeah.
And we are most successful when we find one. And so when we don't raise our hands and say, I need help, I need hugs, I need food, I need somebody to babysit my kids for 2 hours so I can just not be in charge of them. When we don't do that, then we get to the end of our rope. And when you are emotionally frazzled, that is when you make the worst decisions,
Right.
whether it's about life or money or whatever. And so, yeah, you're exactly right. Raise your hand and tap into those resources, whether it's community, support, family, whatever. Find those safe places and tap in.
Right. And they're there for a reason. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, you're right. A lot of people feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be seen as, asking for a handout. And I'm like, you got to feed your kids. Like, let's be realistic. There's certain things that have to happen. But other people are on the other end of the spectrum
Mhm.
where they have all of a sudden maybe a surplus of money or money that they've never had access to before if they've been in a financially abusive relationship. And now all of a sudden, maybe they're having to do budgets and plan and everything for the first time. And again, people can feel, especially women, well, no, I'm not going to say that because I think men probably feel it more because men, if anything, want to show that they got, I'm being very stereotypical here, but they got everything under control. They know the
Yeah.
answers, all that kind of stuff. Whereas I think women are naturally more inclined to say, hey, I would like to learn more about this. But again, stereotypically. But let's say you're on that end of the spectrum. How do you kind of guide people about the idea of a budget? Because I know that's got some bad connotations for a lot of people.
Every time I teach about a seminar, one of the first things I say is like, who's ready to talk about budget? And nobody raises their hand because that is just not a word that gets anybody excited. But the way that we talk about it is, do you remember getting those permission slips in school and go running home and getting your mom or dad to sign it? And you were like field trip day was like the best day ever. Like that feeling. That feeling is a budget because a budget, you have just given yourself permission to spend your money the way you chose to spend your money, not the way somebody else said, not the way somebody, told you should, but the way you said. So now when you go through Starbucks, there's no guilt, there's no shame because you gave yourself permission on October 1st to have 5 Starbucks drive-throughs this month. And so that's the way we frame it when we talk about it. It's not restricting, it's saying, okay, money, let's go to work. Where are we going this month? And so, regardless of how much money you make, most of the time when we talk budgets, we don't talk about like you need to make more to make this work or you need to make this to make the work. We work what you have. We just work the plan.
Yeah.
And so, when you have a hammer and you pick it and and you say I need to hit that nail, you pick up the hammer and you hit the nail and you put it down. There's no emotion, there's no like feelings about the hammer. The hammer did its job and then you put it down. That's a budget too. Like we shouldn't be all like mad at the budget for doing what it is. And also like if you pick up the hammer and you put your hand there and you miss and hit your thumb, like sure, you're going to say maybe a bad word because you missed, but you're going to put down the hammer, walk away, shake off your hand, and then you're going to come back and probably use the same hammer
Right.
and do that again. You're not going to never pick up a hammer again.
Right.
And so we have this relationship with a budget like, oh, it's evil, it's terrible. Like I did it once and it didn't work for me. But it's just a tool. And so we just need to use the tool. And if this size hammer doesn't work for you, get a smaller hammer if you have a smaller hand. Like just find the tool and work the tool that works for you.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea of giving yourself permission rather than an allowance where you're like
Yeah.
feeling like, oh my gosh, I got to make every little, I've only got $10 to spend for the month. And that's where I see
Yeah.
people this. And again, I'm not a financial person like you, but one of the things that I see is people set these crazy budgets that are like going on a keto diet where you can't have one carb
Yes.
for a whole month. And then you
Yes.
have a carb and it's like, well, to hell with this. I've already had a carb. I might as well just go for broke. And I've actually had people who have had a very restrictive budget because they want to save $200 or $300 a month. So they want to put that money in their emergency savings. Now that's great. But if that means you're having a rough morning and you're late getting out of the house and you want to drive through McDonald's and grab a biscuit and a coffee, and now you blow in your budget, and then you go to Walmart and buy 200, or you go to Target, or you go wherever Neiman Marcus, wherever you go, and you buy $200 worth of stuff you don't need.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense anymore. So I love this idea of being practical and reasonable with the budget.
Well, and that's just the thing. I don't know where we got this idea that we're also chiseling budgets in stone. And that, if you go $5 over a category, the whole thing is broken. And like you literally have to like be Moses, break the tablets, and then start over next month. Um, but these are living, breathing things.
Right.
And so, Charles and I have a budget meeting every month. And, when we first met each other, it was a little longer because we were figuring out how to merge families. Now it's, hey, did anything change? Let's do this. Oh, November's Thanksgiving. Let's make the grocery budget a little bigger, all of this kind of thing. But if we get halfway through a month in like October, we have 5 birthdays in our family in October. But one of the birthday parties, somebody put a knee through a wall
Oh,
because they're teenage boys. They're
right.
roughhoused, right? We weren't planning on repairing a hole in the wall. So we adjusted,
Right.
right? And you have the choice, right? So you have this much. And so you say, okay, so I'm not going to do this thing this much because I got to do this thing this much.
Right.
And so you are in charge. And I think we get that in almost every other aspect of our life. I don't know why we can't do that with money. Like when the chip bag runs out, there are no more chips. Like when you're at a party and there's no more Dr. Pepper, you choose Coke or Sprite.
Right.
Like we get that in almost every other aspect of our lives, but when it comes to money, there's something about it. It's just there's something about it that just is like, oh gosh. Like, and I think it's because we think people are going to judge us.
I think so. I think that whole judging thing, and I think there's this. It's interesting you said this because I just did a training a little while ago, and they were talking about how the words we use are not simultaneously understood by everybody. I know that's a bit of a woo-woo concept, but
Yeah.
they had there was like 10 of us in the room, and she said, "Give me a synonym for money from you."
Hmm.
And she went around the room and nobody had the same synonym, which is supposed to be a word that means the same thing, right? Nobody had
Yeah.
the same one for money. Some people had greed, some people had freedom, some people had, so obviously if you're talking to somebody who sees money as a bad thing or a lack of money as a bad thing, they're going to have a whole different association when you're talking finances.
Absolutely. And the most interesting thing is it usually takes a couple of meetings for even our coaching customers and clients to feel like, oh, like Micah and Charles aren't going to be the ones that are be like, you didn't do good on your budget this month. And so there's this imaginary eye in the sky, I think, that we all walk around with that, somebody's going to pop in and be like, that was a bad money choice. Um, and it's your money choice.
You know,
Own it.
I was
Like,
going
just
to say,
own it. Like, you got a Starbucks. You wanted a Starbucks. You made a plan to get a Starbucks. Who cares what anybody else thinks?
yeah, Yeah. And I think this might be, and I don't know, but my parents, for instance,
Yeah.
my parents saved to buy things. So if they wanted a new car, they saved. My dad didn't believe in buying on credit. He didn't for years. He didn't even have a credit card. So it was like during that saving time for whatever, it was like austerity had hit our household. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Happened. And that was kind of a generational thing. And I know for me, now I have, even though I use credit cards, we all do now, but it still makes me feel a little uncomfortable when I make a purchase using something other than cash. Like I feel like I'm doing something wrong still, even though I know I've got enough money in the bank to pay this off when, before the monthly cycle, I've got all of that done, but it still feels wrong. There's a part of me. It took a long time to get through that. So, Micah, we have covered a ton of information and you've given a lot of practical tips and strategies. I love that information about how we should start looking at budgeting a whole lot different because I am a budget person. So I really appreciate that. But of all the stuff that we talked about, what do you think is the most important thing that people should remember when they walk away today and get on about their busy lives?
I think we give ourselves the least grace of anybody else when it comes to money. I think if your best friend came to you and said that they were struggling with XYZ in their finances, you would probably gush over them with like, don't worry, you're going to get this. We're going to figure it out, all of that. But when you have this internal conversation with yourself about money, you're like, why didn't I do that better? You should have made better choices. Like the narrative is completely different. And so I want the key takeaway from today is to talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend. Have some grace and compassion with yourself. And so just be kind and make the next best choice and it'll keep moving you forward.
I love that. And I always appreciate when like your advice is just take that next step in the right direction and just keep making, and before you know it, you've gone a mile and then 10 miles and then who knows where you can end up. So that's fantastic. Now you have a gift for the audience as well, Micah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Because we are all about like making sure that we're getting rid of shame and getting rid of guilt. Sometimes we forget what to do when we're in the midst of that. So we have created kind of a shame detox. And so it's kind of some steps you can walk yourself through when you're really beating up on yourself and your finances. And so we would love to give that away to your listeners. And so that's kind of what we have to offer today.
Thank you so much. And it's definitely something to grab and take a look at because we all have that shame around money. Last question, Micah. If people want to reach out, find out more about what you do, get on your mailing list, do all that kind of good stuff, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can find us at empoweringfinancialcoaching.com or Empowering Financial Coaching on just about every social media. We just got on TikTok even, so it's really fun.
Wow. Are you going to be dancing?
We're not dancing, but there's some fun banter between Charles and I. So.
Oh, right. Well, I'm going to make sure all that information is in the show notes. And Micah, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your wisdom and your really down to earth approach about financing. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Marty.
And thank you all for listening to this episode of The D Shift. And don't forget to tune in to the next episode. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.